It's a beautiful day for today to learn a new topic. So, for today's lesson, we are going to be discussing about approaches in English for specific purposes course design. So, that's going to be discussed by our group. But before anything else, here are the learning objectives that you would expect at the end of the lesson. So, you're able to define what is language centered course design, the importance and the high low of this course design, and of course, to know the purpose which will help you or will help us in the future. So, approaches to course design. Course design is a process by which the raw data about a learning need is interpreted in order to produce an integrated series of teaching learning experiences. In practical terms, this entails the use of the theoretical and empirical information available to produce a syllabus, to select, adapt, or write materials in accordance with the syllabus, to develop a methodology for teaching those materials, and to establish evaluation procedures by which progress towards the specified goals will be measured. So, the aim of course design is to lead the learner to a particular state of knowledge. So there are three main types of the English for specific purposes course design. But for this video, we are gonna be focusing only to the language centered course design.
Good day everyone, my name is Grant Michael Sisotelo and I will be the one who will introduce to you the language-centered course design. So what is language-centered course design? So language-centered course design, also known as language-centered approach, according to Hutchinson and Waters 1987-65, language-centered approach is the simplest and more familiar kind to English teachers. It is an approach that focuses on the linguistic performance of the learner in the target situation. So sabi nga ni Hutchinson and Waters, ito yung course design na familiar gamitin ng mga English teachers dahil ito yung pinakamadali. Ito yung approach na kung saan nagpo-focus sa linguistic performance ng learner depende doon sa target situation. So it is the simplest way to develop a course. It is known to the majority of English teachers, especially in ESP. So ginagamit siya or commonly used in ESP course. So it aims to draw as direct a connection as possible between an analysis of the target situation and the content of ESP course. According to language center's perspective, the nature of the target situation determines the type of ESP training. So, yun. So, ang language-centered course design is meron siyang process na sinusunod. So, sabi nga, di ba, na tawag dito, depende siya sa learner's target situation at saka yung language performance. Right? Di ba? So, yun. The first process which is identify learner's target situation. And then, with select theoretical views of language, ma-identify naman ngayon is yung linguistic features of the target situation. Diba? Parang pinagsama lang nila. And then, after nun is gagawa na ngayon ng syllabus. After nun, magde-design ng materials to exemplify syllabus items. Afterwards, which is the last process, establish evaluation procedure to test acquisition of syllabus item. So as you can see, the last process is more on assessment about doon sa syllabus na nagawa using the learner's target situation and theoretical views of language. Even though language-centered approach is nagpo-focus sa learners and learners' need, hindi po siya la learner-centered. Bakit po? Ang language-centered approach po kasi is ang gumagawa po nito is teacher. So kung ano po yung binigay ng teacher, yun lang po yung matatatanggap ng learners. So it is a learners restrict po. So in terms of process naman po, kung naalala nyo po sa sinabi ko, yung process po is ginagawa lang po ng teachers at hindi po nung learners. So yung process po, learners is walang kinalaman po or no part. Wala po siyang part doon sa process nung language-centered approach. So that's all. And the next topic, which is the strength and weaknesses of language-centered approach, will be discussed by the next reporter. Thank you.
Now let us proceed to the disadvantage of the learning-centered approach. Disadvantage. The learning-centered approach argues that we need to look beyond the competence required for people to be able to perform, since we are more interested in how people acquire the competence, not the competence itself. Some disadvantage include a lack of structure or discipline in the learning process, cause students to feel overwhelmed and possibly not to get as much of the learning process as they would otherwise. Learning-centered instruction also has the disadvantage of too much independence. Well, just as it said, that the language-centered course design process aims to draw as direct a connection as possible between analysis of the target situation of the content in the course. But also, it is often relies on the teacher's ability to create materials appropriate to learners express in needs. It also has a disadvantage that requires more skill on the part of the teacher as well as their time and resources.
So, another disadvantage for language-centered course design, it is start from the learner and their needs, and thus it might be centered in any meaningful sense of the term. The learner is simply used as a means of identifying the target situation. Next, the learner-centered process can also be criticized for being a static and inflexible procedure, which can take a little account of the conflicts and contradictions that are inherent in any human's endeavor. Next, the language-centered models give no acknowledgement to factor, which must be inability to play a part in the creation of any course. So the data, such as the produced by any analysis, is not important in itself. Data must be interpreted, and interpreting the data, we make use of all sorts of knowledge that are not revealed in any analysis itself. So last disadvantage, the language center analysis of the target situation data is only at the surface level. It reveals very little about the competence that underlies the performance. So in overall disadvantages of our language centered course design, it is very limited, and there's a lot of factor that they are not looking into it, so hindi nila masyadong pinupuno or napapansin, kaya nagiging disadvantages ito ng ating language center. And also sabi nga natin na it is limited because yung learners natin, may mga action lang sila na parang may dahil sa ating course design na prevent yung action or yung movement or yung kung ano yung pwedeng gawin ng ating learners, and it is also inflexible. Kumbaga, hindi siya hindi niya kayang i-outreach lahat. So, let's move to the next topic.
Hello everyone, I am Maria Rogelin Salumbre and I'm here to share to you our conclusion about learner-centered approach. The logical, straightforward appeal of the language-centered approach is, in effect, its weakness. It fails to recognize the fact that learners being people, learning is not a straightforward, logical process. Also, a need analysis reveals that the ESP learners need English in order to be able to read text in their subject specialism. They have no need to write, speak, or listen to English. Their sole need is to read English text. If we followed a language centered or skill centered approach to course design, we might conclude that ESP lessons would concern themselves only with the activity of reading text. There would be no listening work. All discussion would be in the native language and writing tasks would be minimal. So here are what we have concluded about the learner centered approach. Also, in addition to this, I could myself conclude that learner-centered approach might might get the students overwhelmed since the instructor or their teachers are merely focused on the performance of the students. So it could make them be it could let the students be pressured about their work, their outputs, and regarding with the scores of their project, something like that. So that would be all. Thank you. And I hope that you have understood our lesson and have a nice day.